Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to congratulate you on your new role in the chair. You look great, and I know it's something that you're going to do an incredibly good job at, and will let me speak on and on tonight as I need to. Since this is my first opportunity to rise in the chamber, I want to send out my thank yous to the people, the great people of Selkirk here and Lake Eastman for, again, putting their trust in me for the 8th time. It is something to always to get that support, but I tell you, it's a humbling experience because this chair that I sit in is their chair, and I get to amplify their voice, which I'll be doing tonight. I want to thank my campaign team and the volunteers that I had to make this election possible, and of course my family, who started on this journey with me over 22 years ago when I first ran for the nomination. So, Mr. Speaker, the forest fires that we're dealing with, and I'm glad that we're having this debate tonight, just really speaks to the challenges that we're having in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, as we've experienced across the country in the past. The Lac du Bonnet area is in my riding. The Bird River fire is largely in my riding. We know that in Manitoba we have a province-wide emergency in effect. The Bird River fire is now over 198,000 hectares, and I'm sure that by the end of tonight it's out of control and it'll be over 200,000 hectares, which makes it the largest forest fire in the province. Almost 1,000 people were evacuated from that fire when it first started in the Lac du Bonnet area. 28 homes and cottages were destroyed, mainly on the Winnedago Road. And evacuation orders in the Lac du Bonnet RM and the RM, the municipality of Alexander, has been lifted, and people are now starting to return home. Unfortunately, we had a tragic loss of 2 lives in our riding, Sue and Richie Noel. I want to extend my sincere condolences to their family and friends. I know that this is heartbreaking for their sons, TC, Ryland, and Emmett. And this is a huge loss for our community. They were volunteers, they were active in the community, and it's somebody that was, they were loved and respected by all their neighbors and friends. You know, lost property, people that lost their homes and cottages, you can rebuild those, but you can never replace the lives lost or the memories that were lost in those homes. I have to extend my greatest gratitude to those first responders, the firefighters, the police, the EMTs. They all have stepped up and did what they could in a fire that was completely out of control and moving so fast, over a week ago, that it consumed and overran our community. There's been so many volunteers that have been there, that have stepped up and helped out. Municipal leaders and their staff in all the municipalities in the affected area. Again, thank you for being there, providing guidance, providing support to those that were evacuated. Province of Manitoba has done an outstanding job of working with those municipalities, working with our frontline responders, making sure that we have resources in place. And that is a large credit to the Provincial Emergency Management Organization and the emergency management coordinators right across the province at the provincial level, but also at the municipal level, who have all come together to support the fight against these wildfires. Canadian Red Cross and the Manitoba Emergency Social Services are running the shelters, making sure everybody has a place when they're evacuated and that they're cared for. But Manitobans have also opened up their homes and have opened up their wallets. They're helping everyone that had been evacuated. And that number stands at over 17,000 in Manitoba as of last night that have been evacuated from their homes because of the out-of-control wildfires. And we know that other provinces have kicked in with personnel and equipment from Alberta, BC, New Brunswick, PEI, and Parks Canada as well to help fight the wildfires across Manitoba. And I just want to thank all of them for chipping in. We have water bombers. We're lucky in Manitoba. We do have a fleet of water bombers. 7 of them are operated by Babcock, and they're the CL-415s and the CL-215 water bombers, and they also have 3 690 Dogbird aircraft. Air spray which is also an Alberta-based company, but has 4 water bombers owned by, that they have on contract to the province of Manitoba full-time, and they have 4 of the CL-4115 aircraft. And then we also have Minnesota has chipped in with a couple of water bombers and 1 bird dog plane. So resources have been brought in. People are fighting these fires, and as we just heard, you know, the smoke is everywhere. Nobody can overlook the magnitude of how serious this tragedy is and how dangerous the situation is. And so it is important that people follow the evacuation orders that are coming from the province, from their local municipalities, and let's make sure that we aren't going back to homes when they are in the line of the fires. Now, the Canadian Armed Forces, and I'm proud to continue to serve as the Shadow Minister for National Defence, and I want to thank our leader, Pierre Poilievre, for again putting his trust in me to carry forward in this portfolio. And I want to give a shout out to the Royal Canadian Air Force, who have stepped up, providing logistical support as well as aircraft to help evacuate some of those remote northern communities, like Mathis Calm Cree Nation and Puckatawagan, and the Cree Nation of Pima Chicamac. And those communities are in really a tough situation, and so it was important to get everybody out of there and get them to safety. Now, I know that some people may have questions around the Department of National Defence and Canadian Armed Forces and their use of military personnel and equipment to help fight these forest fires. And I think, you know, the provinces always have the ability to ask under Part 6 of the National Defence Act for aid to civil power, and making sure that our provincial authorities can rely on them when needed. And the province of Manitoba has used that twice now in the evacuation of both Puckatawagan and Pima Chicamac. So province asked, the armed forces delivered. Now, I know that there's been talk here already about dual use of different aircraft, but I just would say that whether or not the Canadian Armed Forces have the capabilities right now to carry on their operations as well as support aid to civil power through Operation Lennis domestically. Just always know we don't want the provinces and to fall back and think that only the armed forces can provide the relief when it's asked upon, because in times of crisis the armed forces may be elsewhere. And we have the current situation where, thanks to the lost Liberal decade, that we don't have enough personnel, we don't have modern equipment, and our Air Force is in desperate need of new fighter aircraft. The Hercs are starting to age out. The C-17's already got over 15 years on them. And you know, Mr. Speaker, we want to make sure that the Canadian Armed Forces can be all it can be and be there to help Canadians when needed, but that means that we have to fix the recruitment crisis. We're 10,000 troops that are under-trained and undeployable. We have another 8,000 shortage on file because of so many have left the Canadian Armed Forces because of the current situation under the Liberal neglect and mismanagement. Now, we did do a report on aid to civil power in the last Parliament through the Standing Committee on National Defence. And we did talk about the role of the Canadian Armed Forces in domestic operations. And there is things that we should look at, and the government has responded to that report, and I'm more than happy to answer some questions about it if anyone is interested, because of my role as Vice Chair of that committee. Now, the other role the federal government has, of course, is through the disaster financial arrangements agreements between the federal government and the provinces and territories. And I want to make sure that the federal government is providing clear direction to the provinces and the municipalities and Canadians who are affected by this disaster so that they can get the help they need and know where the help's going to come from. Province is the lead agency on this for sure, but the federal government will be stepping in, adjudicating those claims and providing financial support to the provinces, municipalities, and individuals who are impacted. So we need better coordination with the provinces from the federal government. We need to have a better emergency preparedness plan that right now is lacking at the federal level. And we know that there needs to be better support provided to our firefighters, especially our volunteer firefighters who are out there, from the federal government in tax incentives. And as it was already mentioned, Arson is a huge issue here, Mr. Speaker. We need mandatory minimums to ensure that those that are going around and lighting these fires just to create a show is endangering lives, people, and property. So, Mr. Speaker, again, I just say, let's make sure we stand up for those that have been victimized by this crazy fire and thank those who are helping.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll reserve another opportunity to be able to talk about the military. I know the member across the way is very keen on military spending and so forth. It's for another day. I wanted to be able to actually add my condolences to Richard and Sue Knoll from the Lac du Bonnet area. It really was quite a tragic wildfire that ultimately encircled and ultimately led to their death. And it is a very, very tragic and sad story. And to offer condolences to the family and friends and the community itself, which really felt the impact of that fire in a very real way when we found out of the death. And I'm wondering, as the community of Lac du Bonnet stepped up in a very real way, providing soup sandwiches for firefighters and things of that nature at the local arena, I wonder if he could provide his thoughts in regards to how the community itself stood up at a time of need.
For Selkirk, Interlake Eastern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member from Winnipeg North for expressing his condolences to the Noel family as well. And I know that we're all very grateful for the great people of Lac du Bonnet for how they have stepped up. And they, whether it was the volunteer firefighters, the municipal operators, the volunteers that have opened up their homes, opened up, the arena, used it as a center of operations, ensuring that everybody that was out there fighting the fire and all the support crew throughout the entire municipality, as well as the municipality of Alexander, which is right on top of the municipality of Lac du Bonnet. They are delivering what needs to be done. This fire is still growing. It is still huge. Nobody is out of the woods yet, to say, use the saying. But we know that roads are shut down, like Provincial Road 315. There's people that can't even get to work.
Questions et commentaires. Questions and comments. La députée pour Beauharnois.
The member for Beauharnois-Salaberry-Soulanges, Huntingdon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for his very touching elocution since he is from that province. He said that the equipment that the provinces have and that Canada has are insufficient to face these multiple natural disasters that are also multiplying. He mentioned that international aid might actually be necessary to help Manitoba, Mexico, and even Costa Rica might have to help our firefighters. Does he think that perhaps it is time for Canada and the provinces to have everything necessary built here, for example, the necessary planes, in order for us to be able to face these disasters in the future?
Speaker, I thank the member for her question and comment. And I know that the province of Manitoba, we are lucky that we do have a fleet of water bombers that are operated under contract by two different companies. And we know that Minnesota has also sent up some aircraft. There's no doubt that, as was mentioned earlier, that there might be a desire to have surge capacity at a federal level. There is a moral risk with that, too, and that if provinces see that the federal government has a large fleet of water bombers down the road under a new department or underneath the Emergency Preparedness Ministry through public safety, would that mean that other provinces might not want to invest in their own firefighting capabilities? And so that moral hazard has to be weighed into the discussion, Mr. Speaker, around whether or not the federal government takes over those types of assets rather than provinces have.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is truly wonderful to see an Albertan up there in that chair. As the member from Fort McMurray, Cold Lake, I am absolutely, unfortunately, quite familiar with the devastation of forest fires and what it has an impact on the communities. And you touched in your speech on the fact that many members in Manitoba have been able to open up their hearts and their homes to the evacuees. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about some of the supports that are available, because people that are evacuating from fire perhaps are tuning in tonight to listen here. And
I have to interrupt the member. I have to give the member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman some time to respond. The member has about 20 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank my friend for her question. And yes, she's right. It is many different organizations, service clubs and community organizations across the province that have stepped up, have organized volunteers right across from every community to help these that are in need.